ladies and gentlemen. I want to start with a question: what does it mean to win? I'm not talking about a win that's defined by trophies, medals, or applause. I'm talking about a deeper, truer victory, one that resonates in the soul, that says, I made it through. I faced the storm, and I'm still here. Winning isn't about being the best or outpacing everyone else. Winning at its core is a very personal journey. It's about showing up when it's hard, it's about continuing when it's painful, and it's about holding on to your values when the world around you tells you to let go. It's about doing the work even when you don't know what the outcome will be, because you know that in doing the work, you're growing, evolving, and discovering parts of yourself that were previously hidden in the shadows. Let's talk about belief for a moment. Belief is not some airy-fairy mystical thing. It's a deep-seated conviction that we are worthy of more than just survival. It's a quiet confidence that whispers, you've got this even when the world around you seems to scream you don't. Belief is not always loud, it's not always flashy. Sometimes it's the quiet strength of getting out of bed in the morning when every cell in your body wants to stay under the covers. Belief in ourselves is often the first victory we need to win. It's saying, I will win, not because I have it all together, but because I'm willing to show up and be seen. It's about being brave enough to be imperfect. It's about letting go of the need to have it all figured out before we take the first step. Winning isn't about eliminating fear, it's about moving forward despite it. Fear is a constant companion on the journey to our best selves. It's not something to be eradicated or defeated, but something to be acknowledged, understood, and ultimately befriended. When we can sit with our fear without letting it control our choices, we begin to win. Courage is not about having all the answers or being fearless. Courage is about being willing to take a risk, knowing that you might fail, knowing that you might fall short, but doing it anyway. It's about standing in the arena with no guarantee of applause, with no promise of praise, and saying, here I am. I'm willing to be seen. I'm willing to try. Vulnerability is at the heart of every true victory. It's about being brave enough to show up when we have no control over the outcome. It's about leaning into uncertainty and discomfort. It's about allowing ourselves to be seen, to be judged, to be evaluated, and to be measured without losing sight of our worth. When we are vulnerable, we are saying to the world, I believe in myself enough to risk failure. And in that act, whether we succeed or fail, we win. Because winning is not about the result, it's about the courage to try. It's about knowing that no matter what happens, we are enough. To win, we need to own our story. We need to stop running from the parts of ourselves that we don't want to see, the parts we'd rather hide, the parts that we think make us unworthy of love and success. We need to embrace our full, authentic selves, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Owning our story means acknowledging the scars, the wounds, and the mistakes, and recognizing that they are part of who we are. It means understanding that our worth is not defined by our successes or our failures, but by the courage to show up and be seen. It means letting go of the need to be perfect and embracing the truth of our imperfect humanity. When we own our story, we take back our power, we stop letting shame dictate our choices, we stop letting fear control our actions, we stop waiting for someone else to tell us that we're enough, and we start believing it for ourselves. We start living from a place of authenticity, of courage, and of self-compassion. And in that space we win because we're no longer hiding, we're no longer running, and we're no longer living in fear. Winning is not a solitary endeavor. It's not something we do in isolation. It's something we do in community, in relationship, in connection with others. We are wired for connection, for belonging, for love. We are not meant to go through life alone, carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. We are meant to lean on each other, to support each other, to hold each other up when we fall. Connection is not about fitting in or conforming. It's about being seen for who we truly are. It's about finding the people who love us, not in spite of our imperfections, but because of them. It's about creating spaces where we can be real, where we can be vulnerable, where we can be our authentic selves without fear of judgment. When we have the courage to show up as we are, to be seen, to be vulnerable, we give others permission to do the same. We create a ripple effect of courage, of authenticity, of connection. We build a community that lifts us up, that supports us, that cheers us on, even when the journey is hard. And in that space of connection, we win not because we are perfect, but because we are real. Self-compassion is the foundation of true winning. It's the ability to be kind to ourselves, to give ourselves grace when we fall short, to treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a friend. It's about letting go of the harsh inner critic that tells us we're not enough, that we're not worthy, that we're not capable. Self-compassion is not about letting ourselves off the hook or avoiding accountability. It's about acknowledging that we are human, that we are imperfect, and that we are doing the best we can with what we have. It's about recognizing that mistakes are part of the process, that failure is not the end, and that we are worthy of love and belonging just as we are. When we practice self-compassion, we create a space for growth, for learning, for change. We stop beating ourselves up for not being perfect, and we start celebrating the courage it takes to try. We start to believe that we are worthy of success, not because we are flawless, but because we are enough. And in that space of self-compassion, we win, because we are no longer fighting against ourselves, but standing in our own corner, cheering ourselves on. Winning is not a destination, it's a journey. It's not about reaching a final point of success, of achievement, of validation. It's about the daily choices we make, the small acts of courage, the moments of vulnerability, the times when we choose to show up, even when it's hard. It's about the process, the growth, the evolution. Winning is not about being the best version of ourselves, it's about being the truest version of ourselves. It's about letting go of who we think we should be and embracing who we are. It's about finding joy in the journey, even when it's hard, even when it's messy, even when it doesn't look the way we thought it would. There will be days when it feels like we're losing, when it feels like we're not making progress, when it feels like the obstacles are too great. There will be days when the weight of it all feels overwhelming, when we want to throw in the towel and walk away. But those are the days when the real work happens. Those are the days when we dig deep, when we find the strength we didn't know we had, when we keep moving forward, even when it's hard. Because winning is not about never facing challenges, it's about who we become in the face of those challenges. It's about choosing to rise, to keep going, to stay true to ourselves, even when it would be easier to quit. It's about finding the courage to be vulnerable, to be imperfect, to be human. It's about believing that we are worthy of success, not because we have it all figured out, but because we are enough just as we are. Winning requires us to embrace uncertainty. It requires us to let go of the need for control, the need for certainty, the need to know how everything will turn out. It requires us to lean into the discomfort of not knowing, of not having all the answers, of not being in control. Uncertainty is a part of life. It's a part of the journey. It's a part of winning. When we try to control everything, we limit ourselves. We close ourselves off to possibilities, to growth, to change. We hold ourselves back from taking risks, from stepping out of our comfort zones, from trying something new. Embracing uncertainty is about trusting ourselves, trusting the process, trusting that we are capable of handling whatever comes our way. It's about letting go of the need to have it all figured out and choosing to move forward anyway. It's about believing that we are enough, even when we don't know what the outcome will be. Winning often requires us to let go of things that no longer serve us. It requires us to release the old stories, the limiting beliefs, the self-doubt, the fear of failure. It requires us to let go of the need for approval, for validation, for external success. Letting go is not about giving up, it's about making space for something new. It's about creating room for growth, for change, for possibility. It's about trusting that what is meant for us will find us, and that we are enough, just as we are. When we let go of what's holding us back, we create space for what's meant to be. We create space for our authentic selves, for our true purpose, for our deepest joy. We stop living in the past, in the fear of what might go wrong, and we start living in the present, in the belief that we are worthy of success, of love, of happiness. Gratitude is a key ingredient in the journey of winning. It's the ability to find joy, to find meaning, to find beauty, even in the midst of struggle. It's the ability to appreciate what we have, even as we strive for more. It's the ability to see the silver lining even in the darkest moments. Gratitude is not about ignoring the hard stuff, it's about finding the good amidst the hard stuff. It's about recognizing that every challenge, every setback, every failure is an opportunity for growth, for learning, for transformation. It's about finding the lesson, the gift, the blessing, even in the midst of pain. When we practice gratitude, we shift our focus from what's missing to what's present. We stop dwelling on what we don't have, and we start appreciating what we do have. We stop waiting for the perfect moment, and we start finding joy in the imperfect moments. And in that space of gratitude, we win because we are no longer chasing after something outside of ourselves, but finding fulfillment within. Winning is not about being perfect, it's about being real. It's about embracing our flaws, our quirks, our imperfections, and seeing them as a part of our beauty, our strength, our uniqueness. It's about letting go of the need to be flawless and embracing the messiness of life. Imperfection is not a flaw, it's what makes us human. It's what makes us relatable, what makes us interesting, what makes us unique. When we let go of the need to be perfect, we free ourselves to be who we truly are. We stop trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for us, and we start living from a place of authenticity, of courage, of self-acceptance. When we embrace our imperfections, we stop striving for an unattainable ideal and start appreciating the beauty of who we are, just as we are. We stop comparing ourselves to others, and we start celebrating our own journey, our own progress, our own wins. And in that space of self-acceptance, we win because we are no longer trying to be someone we're not, but embracing who we are. Winning is not a one-time event, it's a choice we make every single day. It's a choice to show up, to be seen, to keep going, even when it's hard. It's a choice to keep believing in ourselves, even when the world tells us we can't. It's a choice to keep moving forward, even when the path is unclear, even when the obstacles seem insurmountable. Every day we have a choice. We can choose to stay small, to play it safe, to avoid the discomfort of vulnerability. Or we can choose to be brave, to take risks, to step into the unknown, to embrace the discomfort of growth. We can choose to let fear dictate our choices, or we can choose to move forward despite the fear. Winning is not about never feeling fear, it's about choosing to act in the face of it. It's about choosing courage over comfort, authenticity over approval, growth over stagnation. It's about choosing to believe in ourselves, even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when we don't know how it will all turn out. Every day we have a choice. And in those choices we win not because we have it all together, but because we are willing to try. We are willing to show up, to be seen, to keep going, even when it's hard. We are willing to choose courage, to choose vulnerability, to choose authenticity. And in that space of choice, we win because we are no longer living in fear, but in love, in truth, in possibility. Winning is not just about achieving external success, it's about discovering who we truly are. It's about peeling back the layers of who we think we should be and finding the core of who we truly are. It's about letting go of the masks, the expectations, the judgments, and embracing our true selves. Self-discovery is not a destination, it's a lifelong journey. It's a process of growing, evolving, changing, and becoming. It's about learning to love ourselves, not just for who we are today, but for who we are becoming. It's about embracing the process, the growth, the change, and finding joy in the journey. Winning is not about being the best version of ourselves. It's about being the truest version of ourselves. It's about finding the courage to be real, to be honest, to be authentic. It's about choosing to live from a place of truth, of love, of joy, even when it's hard, even when it's messy, even when it doesn't look the way we thought it would. Winning requires us to embrace the unknown. It requires us to let go of the need for certainty, for control, for knowing how it will all turn out. It requires us to trust ourselves, to trust the process, to trust the process, to trust that we are enough, just as we are. The unknown is a place of possibility, of growth, of transformation. It's a place where we can let go of the old and make room for the new. It's a place where we can step into our power, into our truth, into our potential. Embracing the unknown is not about eliminating fear. It's about choosing to move forward, despite the fear. It's about trusting that we are capable of handling whatever comes our way. It's about letting go of the need for perfection and embracing the messiness of life. When we embrace the unknown, we free ourselves from the chains of fear, from the need for control, from the weight of expectations. We open ourselves up to new possibilities, to new opportunities, to new ways of being. And in that space of the unknown, we win. Because we are no longer living in fear, but in faith, in courage, in truth. Winning requires the courage to be seen. It requires the courage to stand in our truth, to speak our minds, to share our hearts, even when it's hard, even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when we don't know how it will be received. It requires the courage to show up, to be vulnerable, to be real, even when we're not sure if we'll be accepted. Being seen is not about being perfect, it's about being authentic. It's about being willing to share our story, our truth, our journey, even when it's messy, even when it's imperfect, even when it's imperfect, even when it's raw. It's about being willing to be judged, to be criticized, to be misunderstood without losing sight of who we are. When we have the courage to be seen, we create a space for connection, for belonging, for true relationship. We create a space where others can see us, and where we can see them without the masks, without the pretense, without the fear of not being enough. And in that space of authenticity, we win, because we are no longer hiding, but living from a place of truth. Winning sometimes requires us to stand alone. It requires us to be willing to walk away from what no longer serves us, to say no to what is not aligned with our values, to stand firm in our truth, even when it's unpopular, even when it's lonely, even when it's hard. Standing alone is not about isolation, it's about integrity. It's about being true to ourselves, even when it would be easier to conform, to fit in, to be liked. It's about choosing authenticity over approval, courage over comfort, truth over ease. When we have the strength to stand alone, we reclaim our power. We stop giving away our worth to others, and we start finding it within ourselves. We stop looking for validation outside of ourselves, and we start trusting our own voice, our own truth, our own journey. And in that space of self-trust, we win because we are no longer living for others, but for ourselves. Winning is not about the destination, it's about the joy of the journey. It's about finding meaning, purpose, and fulfillment in the process, in the growth, in the daily choices we make. It's about celebrating the small victories, the moments of courage, the acts of vulnerability, the steps of progress. Joy is not found in perfection, it's found in authenticity. It's found in the moments when we are true to ourselves, when we show up as we are, when we embrace the messiness of life. It's found in the relationships we build, the connections we create, the love we share. When we find joy in the journey, we stop waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect outcome, the perfect success. We start living in the present, in the beauty of what is, in the reality of who we are. And in that space of joy, we win because we are no longer chasing after something outside of ourselves, but finding fulfillment within. Winning is a choice. It's a choice to be brave, to be vulnerable, to be authentic. It's a choice to show up, to be seen, to keep going, even when it's hard. It's a choice to believe in ourselves, even when the world tells us we can't. Every day we have a choice. We can choose to stay small, to play it safe, to avoid the discomfort of vulnerability. Or we can choose to be brave, to take risks, to step into the unknown, to embrace the discomfort of growth. We can choose to let fear dictate our choices, or we can choose to move forward despite the fear. Every day we have a choice. And in those choices, we win not because we have it all together, but because we are willing to try. We are willing to show up, to be seen, to keep going, even when it's hard. We are willing to choose courage, to choose vulnerability, to choose authenticity. And in that space of choice, we win because we are no longer living in fear, but in love, in truth, in possibility. Winning is not about being invincible, it's about being human. It's about embracing our humanity, our vulnerability, our imperfections, and finding strength in them. It's about recognizing that we are enough, just as we are, and that our worth is not defined by our successes or our failures, but by our willingness to show up and be seen. The human spirit is resilient, courageous, and beautiful. It is capable of incredible strength, of profound love, of deep compassion. It is capable of rising from the ashes, of finding light in the darkness, of creating beauty from brokenness. Winning is not about being the best, it's about being true to ourselves. It's about living from a place of authenticity, of courage, of love. It's about finding joy in the journey, in the growth, in the process, and in the connection with others. And in that space of authenticity, of courage, of love, we win because we are no longer living for something outside of ourselves, but for the truth of who we are. We are no longer chasing after perfection, but embracing the beauty of our imperfect humanity. We are no longer living in fear, but in faith, in courage, in truth. Winning is not about never failing, it's about how we respond to failure. It's about picking ourselves up after we've fallen, dusting ourselves off, and continuing on the path. It's about learning from our mistakes, growing from our challenges, and choosing to see every setback as a setup for a comeback. Failure is not a reflection of our worth, it's a natural part of the journey. It's a part of trying, of risking, of daring to be seen. It's a sign that we are stepping out of our comfort zones, that we are taking chances, that we are moving forward, even when the outcome is uncertain. When we embrace failure as a teacher, as a guide, as a friend, we remove its power to shame us, to limit us, to keep us small. We stop seeing failure as a roadblock and start seeing it as a stepping stone. We stop fearing failure and start using it as fuel for growth, for learning, for change. In the face of failure, resilience is our greatest asset. Resilience is the ability to keep going, to keep believing, to keep trying, even when it's hard. It's the ability to bounce back, to rise up, to face another day with courage and determination. And in that space of resilience, we win not because we never fail, but because we never stop trying. Winning requires self-compassion. It requires us to be kind to ourselves, to be gentle with ourselves, to be forgiving of ourselves when we fall short. It requires us to let go of the harsh self-criticism, the constant striving for perfection, the endless comparison to others. Self-compassion is not about lowering our standards or letting ourselves off the hook. It's about recognizing that we are human, that we are imperfect, that we are doing the best we can. It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness, the same understanding, the same compassion that we would offer to a friend. When we practice self-compassion, we free ourselves from the burden of perfectionism, from the fear of not being enough, from the constant need to prove ourselves. We create space for growth, for learning, for making mistakes without the weight of shame, of guilt, of judgment. And in that space of self-compassion, we win because we are no longer living under the tyranny of perfection, but embracing the beauty of imperfection. Winning is not about constantly pushing, striving, achieving. It's about finding balance, about knowing when to rest, when to recharge, when to take care of ourselves. It's about recognizing that rest is not a sign of weakness, but a necessity for strength. Rest is not a luxury, it's a requirement. It's what allows us to show up fully, to give our best, to be present in our lives. It's what allows us to recover, to rejuvenate, to come back stronger. It's what allows us to maintain our well-being, our mental health, our emotional resilience. When we give ourselves permission to rest, we honor our limits, our needs, our humanity. We stop equating our worth with our productivity, our busyness, our achievements, and start valuing ourselves for who we are, not just for what we do. And in that space of rest, we win because we are no longer running on empty, but living from a place of fullness, of wholeness, of well-being. Winning is not about the big moments, the grand gestures, the dramatic successes. It's about the daily acts of persistence, the small steps, the consistent effort. It's about showing up day after day, even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when it feels like we're not making progress. Persistence is the ability to keep going, even when it's tough, even when we're tired, even when we don't see the results we want. It's the ability to stay focused on our goals, on our dreams, on our vision, even when the journey is long, even when the path is unclear, even when the obstacles are great. When we cultivate persistence, we build resilience, we build strength, we build character. We learn to trust the process, to have faith in ourselves, to believe that every small step matters, that every effort counts, that every moment of persistence brings us closer to our goal. And in that space of persistence, we win because we are no longer living for the quick fix, but for the long-term journey. Winning is about saying yes to ourselves, to our dreams, to our desires, to our truth. It's about giving ourselves permission to want what we want, to go after what we desire, to pursue what lights us up. It's about believing that we are worthy of our dreams, of our desires, of our happiness. Saying yes to ourselves is not about being selfish, it's about being true. It's about honoring our needs, our wants, our values, even when it's hard, even when it's unpopular, even when it goes against the grain. It's about choosing to live for ourselves, not for others, not for approval, not for validation. When we say yes to ourselves, we reclaim our power, our agency, our choice. We stop living according to the expectations of others, and we start living according to our own truth. We stop waiting for permission, and we start giving ourselves permission. And in that space of self-affirmation, we win because we are no longer living someone else's life, but our own. Winning is about living authentically. It's about being true to ourselves, even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when it goes against the norm. It's about choosing to be who we are, not who we think we should be, not who others want us to be, not who society expects us to be. Authenticity is not about being perfect, it's about being real. It's about embracing our quirks, our flaws, our uniqueness, and seeing them as a part of our beauty, our strength, our story. It's about letting go of the masks, the pretenses, the expectations, and living from a place of truth. When we choose authenticity, we create a life that is aligned with our values, our passions, our purpose. We create a life that is fulfilling, meaningful, joyful, not because it's perfect, but because it's true. And in that space of authenticity, we win because we are no longer living in fear, but in freedom, in courage, in truth. Winning is not just about personal success, it's about living with purpose. It's about finding meaning, finding fulfillment, finding joy in something greater than ourselves. It's about contributing to the world, making a difference, leaving a legacy. Purpose is not about having it all figured out. It's about following what lights us up, what brings us joy, what makes us feel alive. It's about finding the intersection of our passions, our talents, our values, and using them to make a positive impact. It's about doing what matters, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's risky. When we live with purpose, we create a life that is fulfilling, meaningful, joyful. We stop chasing after superficial success, and we start building something that lasts, something that matters, something that makes a difference. And in that space of purpose, we win because we are no longer living for ourselves, but for something greater. Winning requires forgiveness. It requires us to let go of the past, to release the grudges, the resentments, the hurts that keep us stuck. It requires us to forgive ourselves, to forgive others, to forgive life for not being what we expected. Forgiveness is not about condoning what happened. It's about freeing ourselves from the burden of bitterness, from the weight of anger, from the chains of the past. It's about choosing to move forward, to let go, to heal, even when it's hard, even when it's painful, even when it feels unfair. When we practice forgiveness, we free ourselves from the past, from the wounds, from the hurts that hold us back. We create space for healing, for growth, for new beginnings. And in that space of forgiveness, we win because we are no longer living in the shadows of the past, but in the light of the present.